Most high achievers are not lacking discipline. They're overperforming inside systems that were never designed for their freedom. I'm Amber. I'm a nurse practitioner, a captain in the Army Reserve, an entrepreneur, and the developer of the Success Savage. I was a high achiever that had followed all the right paths. But no matter what, I still felt burnout, all this pressure, really out of alignment. I started realizing that much of what I called ambition wasn't really ambition at all. It was conditioning that, after years and years of conditioning from our culture and our society, of just following the script that was handed to us, school, careers, family expectations, the culture, work hard, be grateful, don't rock the boat, keep pushing. And no matter how successful I became, the finish line just kept moving. That's when I realized the problem wasn't me. The problem was that I was living by rules I never consciously agreed to. A lot of people are living under invisible rules that they never consciously chose or agreed to. Examples like work harder, be grateful, don't disappoint anyone, success requires sacrifice, rest must be earned, wanting more is selfish. This is really prevalent in, I feel like, mostly in high achieving cultures, especially women. We're always kind of told to, you know, not rock the boat, like I said, or just be agreeable and do what you're told. Also in healthcare, we are just told you got to take care of the patient. You got to do what's best for them, even when you're working, yourself to the bone, working extra hours, extra shifts, or you're short staffed and they want you to come in and you're expected to do so. And that just in the end is burning you out and you don't even realize it. Also, you know, the validation that we get externally from people, like, oh, I appreciate you coming in and covering this extra shift, when really all it did was create more stress on you and your body and burn you out in the end. And they're just all they got was a simple thank you or maybe a little bit of an extra dollar bonus an hour. But, these sorts of things, this is what I'm talking about. And we become so focused on proving our worth that we forget to ask whether the lives that we're actually living feel good. So ask yourself this: whose approval are you still chasing? What rules are silently running your life? I'll let you think about that for a sec. Awareness changes everything because when you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. So once you start to notice these invisible rules that you have now identified, it's hard to unsee it at that point. You also can't create a different life while clinging to an identity built in survival mode. Some of these identities look like the good girl, the overperformer. That was me, for sure. Also, burnout as an identity attachment. I know multiple people that they wear burnout as a badge of honor, and that, oh, I worked so hard. I worked 80 hours this week, and they want people to pat them on the back for that. And what's the flex in that? You're really just burning yourself out and burning both end candles at the end, and you're just miserable. Um, an identity of fear of disappointing people, fear of change, or fear of being misunderstood. A lot of people, especially in our culture, it's so programmed in us to work the 9 to 5, go to the university, rack up all these student loans, and just work, work, work until you retire. And then half the time when you retire, you end up having, health issues and can't even enjoy your retirement. So when people are like, oh, I want to do something different and branch out, a lot of people don't understand that. They're like, why? Because that's just not the culture that we've all been trained that we're supposed to do. So what we need to do is we got to shift you from proving to choosing, from obligation to alignment, from survival to leadership, and from shrinking to ownership. This reinvention is not about becoming someone else. It's about being honest about who you already are and who you've always meant to be. This could look like you might lose relationships or even opportunities that you once thought were really awesome, but they just don't feel aligned anymore. And that's okay. And you've got to be okay with that. Also realizing that even if you're successful on paper and everything looks great, but if you're not feeling good and you're exhausted, that really truly isn't success. Success without peace isn't truly success. And the hardest part of this reinvention is that the old version of you is still going to fight to survive. That's just ingrained in our brains that it keeps us safe. So the unknown and the unfamiliar is always going to try to bring you back in. So it's hard. It's hard. I get it. But about this reinvention that you need to do with yourself, it isn't just saying that you're going to do it. It does require some action, especially before you're certain. You can't, nothing is guaranteed in life, right? You're not even guaranteed to wake up the next day. So moving even before you're 100% sure or 100% guarantee, you've got to do that, right? You just otherwise you're constantly living in the oh, I'll do it tomorrow or maybe in a year, that sort of thing. We don't want to live in that continuous cycle, right? We've got to sometimes make bold decisions and leaps before we fully feel ready. So, choosing yourself, this is really hard for women, especially just because we're always the caretakers. So putting yourself first can sometimes feel really difficult. You got to create new standards for yourself. Also, again, making these decisions and acting on them and starting will also build confidence in you. Repetition, trying things over and over again, trying new things, even though you're scared. And when you are successful at them, because you will be successful, you get this confidence from that. And then also, once you get that confidence developed, then you're no longer outsourcing your self-worth. You feel worthy, you're worthy. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. So, an example of this for me personally was 6 months ago. I was offered an opportunity to speak on stage. The old version of me wanted to say, oh no, that's not me. That's a future me, maybe in like a year after I feel more um, ready or accomplished, or, after I started my programs and have really had some success stories, you know, then, right? Um, that's future. But then I kind of felt this pull and I thought, I want to be on stage. I have a message. I have stuff that I need to say, and why shouldn't I do this? Why shouldn't I do this? And the only way I was going to become a speaker on stage was to do it, right? Was it scary? Absolutely. But you know what? When I did it and I came off that stage, a new level had been unlocked. It was crazy. Something that another example that I could give you would be stepping into visibility. Again, with this stage thing, I was scared, but I had to do it scared anyway. And then part of that is scared of being seen, right? Because again, you're worried about outside influences and what everybody's going to think about you. So I'm starting a podcast. I originally wanted to be in journalism. I went to started school for that in university, and then I just wasn't really driving with that originally. So then I saw a lot of job opportunities in nursing, and that's when I pivoted and went into healthcare. But deep down, I still really had this pull, and I wanted to be in this journalism space. So, in the process of starting a podcast right now. And some may think, well, what does she do? Or what does she know? Or who does she think she is that she can just do a podcast? But if it's something that's fun and exciting for me and something I've always wanted to do, why not? Especially if I enjoy it. Even if say it doesn't, take off, which it will. But say it doesn't. it's still something that I enjoy doing, and it could just be a fun project and a fun hobby to do. It doesn't matter what other people think. If it makes you happy, that's what's important. And you can't live a life of success, like I said earlier, without peace, without happiness, and feeling good. Something else, that can be from this part of it, this embodiment or taking action is really thinking, maybe something like entrepreneurship. Is that something that interests me? Do I want to be my own boss? Do I want to own my own company? Do I maybe just want to be in a leadership role? I've always kind of stayed in the shadows, but maybe now I want to step into leadership. You know, building aligned wealth, finding a position in your life or a position that interests you that maybe you think you can't do and deciding to take action like, no, you know what? I'm going to do that instead. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try that. Something that makes you feel good. And you're just at that point, you're deciding on a life that no longer, you're not available for a life that no longer drains you. So your next level is not waiting for permission, it's waiting for your decision. The moment you stop apologizing for wanting more, your entire life begins to change. So again, what invisible rules are you finally ready to break? Those rules we thought about earlier. What are those rules you're ready to break? Write them down. And then also what version of you is waiting on the other side of that decision. So these rules that you've created, write them down and then write down, I'm going to not follow this rule anymore and I'm going to make a new rule. And this is my new rule. And then write out and describe what version of you is waiting on the other side of that decision. I'm going to be the one that has this successful podcast. I'm going to be the one that's speaking on multiple stages. Or some other example, I'm going to start my own business. Uh, you could be somebody that has been in healthcare and decide to totally pivot and do something different. But basically, the final message is this: burnout is not your identity. Exhaustion is not your proof of worth. And you do not have to abandon yourself to become successful. The world doesn't need more high achieving, exhausted performers in survival mode. It needs more people brave enough to reinvent their lives authentically, boldly, and unapologetically. This is where burnout ends and your bold reinvention begins. So, if any of this resonated with you tonight, you can find me on Instagram at The Success Savage, and soon on my podcast, The Success Savage Sessions. I really appreciate you listening to me tonight and hearing my message, and I can't wait to work with you in the future.